Bingo Blitz rules.
If your bingo has ads in it,
That's not a bingo.
if it doesn't have the coolest tournaments, mini games, and the most breathtaking design,
Nope, not a bingo.
if your bingo moment makes you feel so excited that you just want to burst in joy and scream out loud, bingo! Sorry, so you're playing...
Bingo Blitz? Now that's a bingo. Go for a world of excitement with Bingo Blitz, the #1 free bingo game. Download Bingo Blitz and play for free.
Now that's a bingo.
This episode is brought to you by Skinny Pop Popcorn. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Oh, so light and crunchy. Skinny Pop Original Popcorn is the snack you've been searching for. Made with just 3 simple ingredients: popcorn kernels, sunflower oil, and salt. Snacking never felt or tasted so good. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Give yourself permission to snack and pick up Skinny Pop Original Popcorn today.
Let's hang out. Let's hang out. And let's talk about what lessons are found. Let's hang out. And let's listen to 2 lesbians shout. Let's hang out. Let's hang out.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Lez Hang Out, the podcast where, Ellie, when I'm with you, that is the only time I feel alive.
Oh, Lee, you shouldn't have.
Sorry, the correct response is, that's all I need. That's all I've ever needed.
I know, sorry, I didn't have that quote written down. Let me try that one more time. That's all I need. That's all I've ever needed.
Thank you. Good Lord, is this
You're
so
welcome.
much to ask?
There's a lot. And there's so much
There's
of the
a
show.
lot. You are correct. From the West Coast, I'm Lee Holmes Foster.
And from the East Coast, I'm Ellie Brigida. To those of you who have been with us through this whole journey, thank you as always for listening. If you're a new listener, welcome. We're excited to have you here. Here's what's happening this week. This week in the Lesdom. This Week in the Lesdom is a place where we can touch base each episode about things going on with the podcast or otherwise. We want to remind you of our Season 5 Patreon campaign. You can join at bit.ly/lespatreon. Once we hit 150 patrons, we will start releasing bonus episodes. And you know, Lee and I are dying to talk about more lesbian movies, so give us a reason to. Let's do it.
We're just looking for an excuse. We also want to remind you, very exciting, that we have our first in such a long time, in-person live trivia event coming up. We're going to be doing our Valentine's Day, queer couples, all of that trivia on February 17th at Turtle Swamp Brewery in Boston. It is going to be from 7 to 9 Eastern, with a reminder that trivia will be starting on the dot at 7. So you want to get there a little early, but we're so excited. We are going to have, I say we as though I'm going to get to be there.
I'll be there.
All of you in Boston are going to have a blast. I'm very excited for all of you. That's all.
It's going to be great. Speaking of bonus episodes on our Patreon, we are going to be having a Patreon-only Q&A episode because we made it to our first goal on Patreon, which is 125 patrons, which means we opened up questions to all of our patrons, and we have checked in on those questions.
Oh my God.
It's going to be a great time.
They're so good.
It's not too late to join. If you join our Patreon before February 23rd, you can join us live on Zoom to listen to our Patreon-only Q&A. We'll also be releasing it as an audio episode on our Patreon only, so you will not get it on the regular feed. Only patrons get to hear all of our thoughts on some really, really great questions that people have been sending in. It's going to be great. We can't wait.
They're worth it. Listen, we're super excited. We also want to remind you that we are going to be kicking off soon. So at the end of March is when we're going to be kicking off our next crowdfunding campaign for our next podcast musical. It's called Journey to the Heart. We're a little obsessed with it and we're very excited. And what that means is that we are kind of closing in on our last few weeks of putting together a team to help us crowdfund that. So if you'd like to help, make sure you send us an email, letshangoutpod@gmail.com, so that you can join the meetings. We're going to have like a couple meetings leading up to it to just A, meet people who are going to be helping us out, and B, talk about what's going to be in. So that's kind of all happening coming up soon. So if you are interested, please send us an email. We are really excited about the next musical that we're going to make.
It's going to be great. In the greater Les universe, gay and lesbian adults have higher COVID vaccination rates than the rest of the population, which is not a surprise to me because we have
We are better.
Yeah, we're better.
Better people.
We're better. I think we also have a lot more personal experience with pandemics. So we're very much cautious and cognizant of our own health.
Especially experience with pandemics that are just like kind of ignored and mistreated by the government.
Yep.
Like it's almost like queer people, there's some history there. And so unsurprisingly, we're doing better.
So good on you, gays and lesbians. We appreciate you.
We also have some exciting news from our Flame family, which is we have to let you know that Valerie Rose Lohman, multiple guest on the pod, and also our fave and yours as Mel in the Flame, has a new single dropping today. It is called Kill For You, Die For You, and it should be available streaming everywhere, so make sure you check that out if you're looking for a new spooky bop. We also, this week in the Lesdom, want to talk about the I mean, I'm not going to say culmination because it's not over, but the like finally getting their slow burn that has been happening in Batwoman between Ryan and Sophie. So we want to talk about that Wildmore scene. You all know what I'm talking about. You all know, like, Sophie breaking a lamp. They're in bed together. They both have like cute ass bras on. They're like taking turns, like, you know, Ryan's like, I'm a top, and Sophie's like, yeah, okay, sure, and like flips her over.
Nice.
And, like, it's listen. I might be a little behind. We're catching up on Batwoman still. That does not stop me from spoiling everything for myself. So like, I'm into it. I'm here for it. It's also, we are certainly not going to understate the importance of like a hot queer ship with two black women in it on our television screens. It's incredible. I honestly, I was telling Kelsey when we were watching, we're still like way behind the episode that we were watching about Batwoman, but I was telling her because the show is just bonkers and like everybody is like hot and gay and I'm so here for it. And I was like, I honestly feel like there must be something happening where it's like some combination of like the writers just being like, give the gays everything they want. And also like, does nobody at the CW like watch this show? I feel like they have no idea
what's going on. Yeah.
It's incredible. It's amazing that like all of this is making it to our TV screens. So if you're not all watching, you should be. That's all I'm going to say.
You should be. Also in Olympics news, the Olympics are happening. The US and Canadian hockey teams are competing against each other and they're super, super gay. So wives are on competing teams, like
amazing.
Ex-wives are watching. Like there's just so much like incest between all these like American and Canadian lesbian hockey players that like I couldn't even keep track of it.
We need an Olympic hockey, like women's hockey teams chart.
Yeah, somebody please put together the chart for us so we can actually understand it. But either way, I know it's gay. So
also, can someone like write me this story? I want this. Story. Like someone make this movie is what we're saying.
Make this movie. Yeah. They're like the wives have to like go in separate rooms to train and it's crazy. But that's what's happening this week. Back to you, Ellie and Lee.
Thanks, Ellie and Lee, and welcome to Season 5, Episode 12, our next installment of Lez-ssentials.
Lez-ssentials is a recurring segment on the show where we dive into classic lesbian movies or TV shows.
And as a reminder, we are writing and recording original songs for every one of our Lez-ssentials recaps now. So you are going to want to stick around to the end of the very end of the episode to hear our new original song called Leave a Mark. It's a bop. It's a bop.
I can't wait. And it is in the style of the Dickinson music universe. So get excited for that. It's going to be really fun.
We tried.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. And for this Lez-ssentials, if you didn't tell from our quote at the beginning, we're talking about the 2019 through 2021 Apple TV series Dickinson.
Obviously loosely, somewhat not loosely based on the life of one Emily Dickinson. It is created by Elena Smith, stars Haley Steinfeld. Everybody knows and loves the Haley Steinfeld World Domination Tour.
Yeah, we're here for it.
And Ella Hunt as Susan Gilbert Dickinson.
Great.
It's
great series.
Listen.
As we say, like loosely based, everyone knows, or I'd like to say everyone knows, but like Emily Dickinson and her brother's wife were in a very long time love affair. So that's Emily Dickinson and Susan Gilbert Dickinson, not related and sort of related, but also
And sort of related.
but also lovers. So we're excited to talk about that and Dickinson itself. I think it really is like such a great example of how you can make a period piece in a modern style that still feels accurate to the time and new and interesting. So let's read our IMDb synopsis for Dickinson.
Okay, for anyone who has not yet watched Dickinson, or who has and just loves, when we read these, here's our IMDb synopsis. Set in the 19th century, it explores the constraints of society, gender, and family from the perspective of rebellious young poet Emily Dickinson.
I mean,
I like the it here.
Yeah, it. I think it is Dickinson, the TV series.
But it's weird.
Yes.
It's still a weird use of it.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Very, very strange. But yeah, there's our IMDb synopsis. We are going to try our best to go through. There are 3 seasons of the show, and that's all we are getting, right? 3 seasons. That's like the finale of the show. We're not going to get a 4th season. So we figured now is the time to talk about all 3 seasons because we've been wanting to talk about it for a while, but it hasn't been done yet. So now we're here. We're ready to dive in. So let's talk. We're going to give a synopsis of season 1 first. So let's start with season 1, Lee. What do you got for me? What is season 1 of Dickinson about?
So season 1, I feel like we don't have to do like as in-depth of an analysis of all of it, but I feel like we should really kind of dig into what we learn in the first episode of season 1, right? Because I feel like season 1, episode 1 really like sets up a lot for the show. And I think namely that who cares about anything else? We meet Emily and, well, we don't actually even meet Sue yet. We meet Austin, who says he proposed to Sue and she said yes. And what we know about Sue right now is that she is Emily's best friend and she is going to marry Emily's brother.
Yep.
And Emily sends her a little note being like, meet me in the orchard. A recurring theme of their lives together is Emily just wants to like send small pieces of paper.
Small writing.
At
like
Sue with tiny writing on them. Meet me in the orchard. And they have this whole showdown in the orchard where Emily's like, I can't believe you're marrying my brother. And Sue's like, my whole family is dead, which like, fair.
Yes.
Fair. Small orphaned Sue Gilbert is going to marry Austin. And I have my first quote that I wrote down because I think it's very important is Emily looks at Sue and says, promise me something, Sue, that you'll always love me more than him. And Sue replies, I wouldn't worry too much about that one. And then they suck face.
Hell yeah.
Aggressively in the rain, in their dresses, in the orchard, and lesbians the world over went, Dickinson, you say? Uh-huh.
Yeah, they did not slow play that for us, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for starting us. We'll get to season 2, but thank you for starting us with some great lesbian content and then ripping it away from us in season 2. We'll get there.
Well, listen.
But season 1, I appreciate.
But to your point, like, listen, when you tell people, hey, we're doing like an Emily Dickinson period piece and like it's gonna be about her and Sue who like clearly fucked their whole lives, I think that's not what most of us expected,
And they really gave it to us right in the first episode, which I do appreciate. Yeah. Very, very soon into the first episode, we completely understand that Sue is not in love with Austin. She is madly in love with Emily Dickinson, and she has to marry Austin in order to not
die.
Yeah, literally. She says I need food.
Stay alive.
I'm pretty sure she says to Emily, she was like, I can't eat if I don't marry your brother. So let me marry your brother. I'm so sorry.
Listen, not a lot of options in 1850s Amherst for a young orphaned lass and her lack of all available options.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's fair.
It's fair, but it does put us in some shitty situations all through season 1. Let's do it.
It does. And so I think that's if we go through what happens in season 1, there's a lot of them working through the emotions of like how they feel about each other, and all kind of building up to the wedding, right? Like that's what I would say kind of frames season 1. Is season 1 opens with Austin proposing, season 1 ends with the wedding, and I think a lot of the in between there is seeing more of their relationship, seeing more of them each trying to process how they feel about building up to this wedding. So you kind of have like right from the get-go with them like making out in the orchard, but then you also get like Sue's not married yet, so she's still in the household primarily as like Emily's friend. So there's sleepovers all the time. They're constantly in each other's beds.
Yep.
Platonically, in quotation marks, feels very reminiscent of my college experience.
Yep. We have some really nice comparisons of Sue and Emily's sex life with volcanoes, so that's nice.
Yep. And well, and even that whole episode, because that's the episode where they dress up like dudes, which like hot, I'm here for it. But what I love is before they do all of that, that whole episode starts with them having a sleepover and they're lying in bed, and Emily, and I love this because actually going back and like rewatching some of their earlier scenes that I didn't realize some of the stuff that they like call back to later on quite as much. So Emily goes, "I wish I could just marry you." And Sue says, "You'd be a terrible husband."
Yep.
Accurate. But what I love is she says, Emily responds and she goes, "But I bet I'd look good in a suit." And I'm like,
Obviously.
And then they spend the whole episode dressed up in their little
men.
dude suits, and I love it. And yeah, they go to a talk to learn about volcanoes, and then they have sex.
Yeah, and then they have a volcano happen in their
to
bed.
a hot volcano poem.
Yeah.
I mean, hashtag relatable content.
It's great.
Whomst amongst us has not, just gotten really upset about Pompeii and then boned a little.
Yeah, it happens.
Sure. But yeah, so it's, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of pent up feelings. There's a lot of emotional baggage that they're dealing with. There's a lot of stuff to process between Emily and Austin as well. We have Austin like walks in on Emily and Sue kissing, and like has Jane, who, Jane always a problem situation in this show. Jane like tells Austin, she's like, "Wow, I don't know how I'd feel marrying a girl who's like clearly into
in
my
love
sister."
with your sister. Yeah.
Like,
you're like,
awkward.
And
and so
like,
he like
how
walks
did you not
in.
realize? Like Austin is such an idiot.
Yeah. Austin's season 1 hair, just like, I love it.
Yes.
I love it. I feel like we could do a side episode podcast, like just talking about Austin's hair journey.
Yeah, the
through
evolution of his hair is pretty impressive. Yeah.
Is amazing, right? Like, he's such a child here, and it's like so perfectly encapsulated by his little douchey haircut.
It's so bad.
It's the worst.
It's so bad.
He's so bad. And he's such a dick about everything. Like, he walks in on them kissing, loses his shit. Sue is like, "I can't deal with the two of you," which, like, fair. Sue can't deal with them. She's like, "I'm going to go to Boston." She goes to Boston. Emily's like, "I'm dying. Oh no." And like, Sue comes back because she's like, "You can't tell me you're dying. Like, literally my entire family died." And Emily's like, "I was just being dramatic.
I was just exaggerating. I felt like I was dying.
It was a metaphor."
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God. So Sue comes back and Emily's like, "Marry Austin." And so she decides to marry Austin, and then immediately gets jealous when Emily meets a dude. And you're like, it begins.
Yep.
It begins with the men. At least I liked Ben. I'll give him that much.
Yes, but I also would like to say, so Elise, who I do Sweet Bitter with, she is a poet and like studies Emily Dickinson and everything. And she was like, as she started watching Dickinson, she was like, like Sue was the only person that Emily Dickinson was ever in love with.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at any of her poetry and all that kind of stuff, like, it's like very much projection to put all of these men into her life.
It is projection. What I enjoy about it, and we can start talking a little bit about it here, because I do think, like, it is projection in the same way that, like, all of this is a little fan fiction-y, right? Like, this is like Emily Dickinson fan fiction. Yeah, but I think it's done in clever ways. And the one thing that I will give them for Ben, because I liked Ben as a character. Like, I found him believable. We'll get to Sam when we talk about what a shit show that was. But like, I found Sam believable as a character for somebody for Emily to develop feelings for, right? Like somebody who respects her, who understands her, who like she can have that type of relationship with. Fine. Ben dies. R.I.P. Ben.
Yeah.
We're doing such a good recap.
I know.
Ben dies.
Of tuberculosis.
Yes. And what I liked about it is that there is, we've sort of glossed over it a little bit, but I think they use Ben's death to me in like two interesting ways. The first of which is that this is Emily's first time losing somebody that she really cared about. They use that, I think, to make it relatable for her to be able to understand like, oh, hey, Sue's whole family has died.
Yeah.
Everybody that she had is dead now. And I don't think, like, I think they do a good job of using that to, like, help Emily understand a little bit and be less of a child about this whole situation, right? Because she has been being a child. Like, it is easy, again, always for us to look back in period pieces and be like, oh my God, just, like, run away together and live together and be happy. And,
yeah, but like, that's not realistic. Like,
that's not a thing.
They would
like,
run away together and live together and die.
Right. And Sue's options at this point were like, hey, I could die on the side of the road or like marry some guy. And I happened to marry a guy who I like know and like and trust and know the whole family and keeps me conveniently close to the
love
girl
of
I
my
want to
life.
bone
Yeah.
my whole life. So great. Like I think they use it to help Emily in that way, like get a little perspective.
Yes.
Great. Something Austen does not do yet. And the other thing that they do with it, which I love, is when we start the season, right? You start the season and Sue is all in black and is always all in black because she is in constant mourning from her whole family dying.
Yeah.
Every single person dies. And we end the season and they call it out too, right? Like Sue has this quote where she's like, now you're the one in black because Emily is in black in mourning for Ben. And it's during the wedding. And so you get this, not only just the flip between the two of them, but what I love about it is that they dress Emily like her fucking groom. Like they put Emily in all black and Sue in her wedding dress. And I'm like,
yes. Well, also you could think like also she is in mourning for Sue as well.
Well, yes, there's
like,
that.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But yes. And even like towards the end, because this now I think we've the middle of season 1 is fine, but like Sue and Emily aren't together. So same way that season 2.
Yeah, so who cares? We're not going to waste time on Ben.
Season 2 I'll barely talk about either because they're not fucking together. But yeah, so what I do love about the wedding too is that like, okay, they're getting married, but like before Sue gets married, she has like an adventure with Emily.
Yes. Yeah. And they go run through the orchard again together with like their little flowers and they're dressed like a bride and groom and they're so fucking cute. I can't stand it. And I love them. And then Austen has a giant fucking temper tantrum and like pisses himself over the fact that Sue got her dress dirty.
Yeah.
And he like uninvites Emily from the wedding and is a giant dick about all of it. So
huge asshole. I know Austen's character arc like does not do him too many favors.
It really doesn't for a long time. Yeah. Austen takes a while. I'll tell you what. Season 2 is not going to be his time to shine either.
No.
So that's where we leave season 1, right? Is there anything else?
Yeah, no, I think that's
important that we want to talk about plot-wise.
Well, I think the only other thing is the poem that Emily writes for Sue. So she writes like the poem that basically people like quote often of like Sue forevermore. Yeah. The poem is called
One Sister Have I in Our House.
And it's about like gaining a new sister, but like, you know, it's also pretty intense. She writes it in the smallest lettering possible so that only Sue can read it too. So it's just like another thing of
Sue's there with like a fucking magnifying glass. Like it is, I love it. She looks like she is, you know, like fucking Harriet the Spy over here trying to
and she is bawling her eyes out when Austen comes in. So Austen sees his bride to be crying because she's in love with his sister. So that's tough. But yeah, that's the end of season 1. Oh, also we do find out that Sue's pregnant.
Yes, Sue is pregnant, and if we use that as the jumping off
for
point
season
to like
2,
jump to season 2, because I feel like, so it's in the break between season 1 and season 2, right? That like Sue has a miscarriage.
Yeah. So basically, like
they don't show
the
just
miscarriage.
Like
you get
hear about
you
it.
get into the beginning of season 2, and the whole thing is that like Sue's having all these parties at her house. So she's constantly trying to like distract herself with parties. All she's doing is throwing party.
Sue Gilbert Dickinson, the OG influencer.
Yes.
It's like,
That's yep.
She is like, one of my TikTok videos went viral, and now all I can do is this. Sorry.
Exactly.
We're just I am a salon. That's all I do now. I have salons. Sorry, not sorry.
Yep.
This is my life.
And then 2, Emily and Sue, like, this is why I honestly hate season 2. I just don't like it. Sorry, everyone, but I think a lot of people agree with me. But the beginning of season 2, Emily and Sue are not really talking. They're only corresponding through letters and poems.
Yeah.
And through Austin. So Austin has to be like talking as a messenger between the two of them, which is like the most uncomfortable thing to be like, hey, can you, my brother, be the messenger and tell Sue I love her? Like, tell Sue I want her to come to my bed tomorrow.
Remember that time you did not want me to come to your wedding because, like, your wife clearly is in love with me and not you? Could you, like, remind her of that, please? Thanks.
Exactly. And then the first episode, the only real interaction we have between Emily and Sue is that Emily comes to the party. She's covered in ink because she's been writing constantly and her pen explodes, whatever. She comes to the party covered in ink to see Sue, and Sue also like is supposed to introduce her to Sam Bowles, who's like the bane of my existence. I hate him so much. And she pulls her aside, and Emily's like, "Have you been reading my poems?" And Sue's like, I do have the quote for this. She said, "They make me feel so much. It's too painful."
Yeah. Well, and listen, a couple things, because it's like so Emily Dickinson, like show Emily Dickinson.
Yes.
It's so Emily to finally get to talk to Sue, and the only thing she asks is like, "Did you read my poems?"
Yep.
And I'm like, girl,
how about you check in?
Dial it back.
Yeah, like also how about you check
are
in
you?
on your friends?
I've missed you.
Yeah.
How are you feeling since your very recent miscarriage?
Yes.
Any number of questions that would be better to start with than, "Did you read my poems and what did you think of my poems?"
Yep. But to be fair, that is all that Emily Dickinson in the show cares about. But
Correct.
She cares about her poems, and she cares about Sue. There's some interesting themes in season 2 also. I think it's season 2, maybe it's season 3, but either way, it's a recurring theme where people are like, you don't actually love Sue, you just love writing to Sue. And I'm like, ooh, that hits me hard.
Well, and season 2 is also interesting because it's like, we'll talk a little bit more when we get into like the broader themes, but it's interesting watching. Sue tells her, I think also at that same party, that she's like, I can't be your only reader anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is too much. It is like too much pressure on her. She cannot handle it, cannot handle all these feelings. And it's like what starts the whole Sam Bowles thing is Sue is like, I know, I will fix this by getting you published. And so it's like this weird mix of like being famous. Like,
yeah,
Sue's like, I'm the salon influencer, I'm gonna make you the poetry influencer, and like that seems to be her answer to things. And so then you also have this like giant conflict and disconnect over how each of them see and experience and relate to fame, right? Like that's kind of like a central thing of this season. But yeah, I think a lot of it kind of boils down to like each of their own problems and inability to communicate with each other in any meaningful way whatsoever, like all season.
At all. Well, because it is like basically Emily's then like really from episode 1 to episode 10 of season 2, we barely see Emily and Sue interact in a romantic way. We see them like out at like the opera together or like at Sue's parties, but we like never see them in private. And so part of that, I think, is like Sue's storyline really goes to like, she's obviously grieving her miscarriage. She throws herself into whatever she can throw herself into to just like push the grief away and not think about it.
An affair.
Yeah, an affair.
What do we got?
Yeah, an affair with Sam Bowles, who like is the editor of the Springfield Republican and is supposed to be this like charming, like really like charismatic man, and I got the creeps the second I saw him show up on
he's so
on
smarmy.
screen. I was like, this man is disgusting.
He is like oily.
Yeah.
Is that like a good word to
Yes.
use for Sam?
Yes.
The second that he shows up on screen, he is just like, you're like, ugh, I have a bad taste in my mouth. He just seems like a snake. Like, I hate him.
He's so slimy.
Ugh.
Yeah, he makes me so uncomfortable. And so Emily and Sue's storylines revolve around Sam Bowles for the entirety of season 2. And that's why I hate season 2. Because it revolves around, like, yes, we're talking about fame, but it feels like it revolves around Sam Bowles. And then at the end of the season, they're like, oh, well, actually, Sam was like just a stand-in for my feelings for you. And I'm like, okay, fine. But why did I have to sit through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like every episode in between talking about Sam Bowles? But yes, Emily's whole thing.
You're like, okay, let's talk about, like, everyone thinks Emily's having an affair with Sam. Now we see Sue is actually having an affair with Sam. Now Sam is telling Emily that, like, she is acting like they're having an affair. Now she's writing to his wife. Let's hear about how his wife feels about all of this stuff. Now Sue's going to go visit the wife. And you're just like, for the love of Christ, I do not care about Sam Bowles.
I care about Sam Bowles. Like, and that's the entire season 2 is about Sam Bowles, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's about Emily discovering that, like, does she want to be famous? She doesn't want to be famous. And then this man, Sam, like, feeling like, and I do understand, like, how they're sort of, they're doing it. Like, there's this moment towards the end when she finally is like, goodbye, Sam. Like, I do not want you to publish my poems. Like, I'm taking them back. Is like, she finally gets the power back. Like, she gave all of her power to a man, and then she realizes, no, I did not want this man to have control over me, my thoughts, my poems, but yet he does for, like, the entire season.
Yeah.
And she takes the poems back, and then he leaves, and he's like, I'm a feminist. I'm like, God damn you, Sam Bowles.
He's the worst. There is also something about it where it's like, I feel like it kind of springboards us into season 3 that Emily spends all of season 2 kind of chasing fame, right? And there's kind of like this dual thing happening with, like, Sam and fame and all of this stuff and nobody, right? Like, that's kind of the counterbalance in all of season 2.
Do I want no one to know who I am, or do I want everyone to know who I am? Yeah.
And what I like is that the thing that kind of really gets Emily out of that spiral is watching Sam and Sue fuck. And she's like, hang on a second. Maybe I am actually not into all of this. Don't like this one bit. And because that's what really prompts their whole showdown, right? It's like she sees the affair and they sort of try to, like, spin the dialogue a little bit as being like, oh, she, like, you know, like, you forced me to have feelings for Sam and all this stuff. And it's like, you don't have feelings for Sam.
Yeah, like, you just don't. You just
This
don't.
is not about Sam, ladies.
Yeah.
Like, this is about the two of you. And that's what kind of prompts that whole showdown. And that's what prompts, you know, Emily cutting deep at Sue, being like, without me, I don't think you know how to have feelings. And Sue is like, you're damn right.
She's like, yeah, you got me there. I can't.
Got me there.
I can't.
Check.
Yeah. Like,
good point. The only time I feel things is when I'm with you. The only true thing I will ever feel is my love for you. And then, listeners, they fucked.
Thank
in every room of their house, in every way you can imagine.
Thank God.
They fuck in the room, they fuck in the dining room, they fuck in the kitchen in a bath, they fuck in the greenhouse, like, name a place, and they are there, like, ripping open some real juicy oranges and having sex on those oranges.
Yep. And to be fair, like, for the payoff, fine. But also,
great.
like, could you have given that to us at, like, episode 5, please?
Yeah.
But yes, it is, like, one of the best, like, scenes ever.
It's so good. It's so obnoxiously good that they made us wait for that whole season, and I will forgive them for it because of how good that scene is, even though hot garbage up until then.
Yes. That episode is, I will watch that episode over and over and over, but the rest of the season,
so good.
Get it out of me. Get it out of here. I don't need it. Also, like, a few other characters have some stuff that doesn't really matter, but, like, we have Austin and Jane sort of starting something. So you see that, like, Austin and Sue are, like, not really, their marriage is a sham, which we have already known, but it's, like, confirmed. And then Lavinia has this whole thing with that random guy ship.
I love Lavinia and Ship. I'm not gonna lie, I love them. And mostly it's just because I heart Lavinia so freaking much. What is it with me and these characters? I feel like Lavinia for me is the same way that I feel about Alexis. You know,
Yes.
like why do my sweet summer child Lavinia Dickinson? I love them. I don't know what it is.
I mean, Lavinia is just like undeniably great character.
She's
Hilarious.
incredible.
Hilarious.
Incredible.
But yeah, so that's where we're at. And finally, Sue and Emily are together. So let's go into season 3
Okay, let's do it.
I prefer season 3 and season 1. I prefer because we just get way more of Sue and Emily. And I'm like, that's the only reason I'm watching this show. I do find
And
some of the other
also
stuff interesting.
war.
Yeah, and also war. So also a lot of stuff in season 2 was building up to the Civil War as well. So we did have that whole plot where we have Henry who starts his own paper and is like, and we have all kinds of like things leading up to the Civil War. So yes, we have the Civil War, and that's like another theme in season 3 too, where it's like Civil War and also like war within the Dickinson households. A house divided.
Yes. And a baby.
And a baby. Yes. So
we got a lot of themes going. Listen.
Sue's pregnant, but luckily I'm like, okay, Sue's pregnant, fine. And she's like, I don't know how it happened. I'm sorry, Emily. She's like,
it is one thing that it hadn't even occurred to me until putting together some notes for this, that like we never see Sue and Austin like together.
We've
really
seen them once. So we see them together in episode 1 of season 1 because he says he rides up on the horse and he tells Emily, Sue said yes, and he's going down on her and she's screaming yes.
But like that's we never really see them have sex,
no, that's the
right?
only thing
Like
we've ever seen.
we see her and Sam way more than we ever see her and Austin. I like how they're just like, and she's pregnant.
Yes.
I guess they had sex.
Well, also,
like,
you know what's really interesting is actually all the sex scenes we see with men and Sue is them eating her out. We
That's
never see
true.
penetration. It always is the men. So actually, like, honestly, good on you, Sue. Like,
So all of listen, I know there are like fierce camps in terms of like what role each of them play in the bedroom. So all of you like Sue's a bottom kind of pillow princess.
could be true because yeah, she constantly with
I'm just gonna say like there's things in favor of that argument. That's all.
with the men in her life, but also the volcano. She was doing stuff to
She does, I know.
Emily. So we also all know that like lesbian relationships, if only one person is doing something, like there's something wrong here.
No.
But yeah, so back to season 3. Sue's pregnant. There's also so much where like bringing it back to like Emily wanting to marry Sue. There's so much with Sue where she's like, I want to raise the baby with you, Emily. Like, I want you to be the father. Like, I want us to go away and like raise this child together. And Emily's like not having it. Like,
Sue's done a brisk 180 from like you would make a terrible husband. She's like, why can't we just have a family and a baby together and be married, and you could be my husband and we could be the best little family? And you're like, ooh, hello hormones.
Yep. But she does have the baby, and Austin is a shit show. He's like a complete drunk.
Oh, Austin.
He's drunk every day. He's having a huge, like, fully public affair with Jane. He is really a mess. And yeah, so
his hair is better now, but it's still, he's not great.
He's got Beast from Beauty and the Beast hair. You know that
he
like
does.
long pony?
He does. Oh my
He's
god.
rocking it.
It explains so much.
There's a lot of other like really good gay shit in season 3. That's just so, and one of those is Walt Whitman.
Yes.
I feel like it is important to talk about this. So Emily, over this course of all the seasons, meets a lot of famous poets or authors,
writers.
Yeah,
or
like
authors,
we met in season 1. We go to Walden Pond and meet Thoreau, and that's like not really gay, but just like context. But Walt Whitman's played by Billy Eichner.
Mm-hmm.
And
also I love him.
And like the most ridiculous thing ever. So, and also Louisa May Alcott, right? Is there?
Yeah. Well, she met Louisa May Alcott in season
1. I think season 1.
Maybe?
Yeah, season 1.
I want to say season 1.
Yeah, I think it's definitely season 1.
She comes back. Louisa May Alcott comes back
yeah.
in the episode where she meets Walt Whitman.
But then they also like go to a gay bar. Like Walt Whitman takes her to a gay bar and is like Tell
And
me
it
what you
is
fucking
fucking lit.
There's like a fucking mermaid. There's like you can just it's Walt Whitman's like, New York is back. And in the gay bar, Emily just screams, I love Sue.
Yeah.
She's just screaming, I love Sue in a gay bar. And I'm like, this is the content that I wanted in season 2, people. So yeah. Season 3, very, very gay. Just constantly Sue, like with the baby, trying to, at a certain point, she lets Austin in and helps her with the baby. But like most of the time, she's like, Emily, raise the baby with me. They do.
Nobody else, just Emily.
Yeah. They have like a night where they're like, everyone comes over for a sing along and they're playing a song and like the father's like,
Sorry, I think you mean a good old fashioned sing along.
yes, a good old fashioned Dickinson sing along.
Dickinson sing
And everyone, we all know like everyone in this cast are incredible singers, so it was just like a really fun episode.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, so we have like Jane Krakowski, we have freaking Haley Steinfeld, Ella Hunt, and they're all just like fucking singing their hearts out. I'm like, this is amazing. And Mr. Dickinson's like, oh, you should teach the baby this song. And Sue's first reaction is, who, me and Emily?
Oh my God.
And he's like, you and Austin.
He's like, you and my son,
He's
your
like, "You and
husband.
your
What?
husband. Who are you talking about? So that's ridiculous. We also have the episode with Sylvia Plath in it, which is a great episode, where they go to the future.
I cannot.
So they're in the 1950s and they're still like in Amherst, right? They're like basically at the Emily Dickinson house.
Yeah.
And so she sees in the future, Sylvia Plath is like showing them their own house. It's her and Lavinia. Showing her own house and saying like, this is the house of Emily Dickinson, like one of the greatest poets of all time. And so she knows that like her poems survive, but there's also a very gay moment here, which is where Sylvia Plath is like, oh, and very scandalous. There was like something published last year or something that said that Emily Dickinson was a lesbian.
A lesbian.
And Emily's like, oh shit. And Lavinia's like, wait, what? And we have an actually really nice coming out moment. So there's a lot in season 3 that's like very good gay shit. So she comes out to Lavinia and tells her that she is in love with Sue. And Lavinia's like, cool, great.
Yeah, Lavinia's like, we kind of been new, Emily.
Yes.
I think is the summation of that conversation.
It's pretty obvious. One of my favorite parts of season 3 is the Inferno with Emily and Sue, because you literally get Emily going into the Inferno. And what the hell does Sue look like?
Sue is hot in a suit. Let's put it that way.
And is that Ella Hunt's real haircut? Because
that's
I'm pretty
question.
sure
I don't know,
because she has a short haircut, right?
Yeah,
and I think as she Sue, she has a wig on. So I'm pretty
I don't
sure
know if that was also a wig or if they left it
I feel
natural,
like
because it feels longer than her hair is. I think,
but she has a very short haircut. It's all like she's in a whole like suit. They're dancing.
She's in like coattails, and she is dancing up on her, man. Hot stuff.
It's so good.
I just love that portrayal of Sue, because it's like, it's so interesting watching Emily have this whole thing of being like, all I want is Sue. Like, she's kind of come to this realization herself now of being like, all I want is Sue. I love Sue. But then you get like Inferno Sue, who's like a little too much. Like a little too much. And I love that line of like, what does she say? Where she's like, you're putting words in my mouth. And she's like, let me put something else in there then.
Yes. And you're like, Sue.
And like lunges for her. And I'm just like, I love it. And it's a super interesting scene to watch Emily like dig through all of the parts of herself that like she is most afraid of, and the parts of how the people around her see her that she is the most afraid of, and how that plays out with her, how she feels about Sue and what she's afraid of with Sue, and how much she still wants her, it's very interesting.
It's so intense. I love it. But then Emily comes back and she's like, damn, all I want to do is be with Sue. She goes to Sue's house. They're having a going away party for George Gould, who's going to the war.
Oh, George.
And Emily just grabs Sue and starts kissing her in the hallway. It is...
Okay, wait. Emily pushes Sue up against the wall.
Yes. And she kisses her neck in the hallway where
Yeah.
everyone's in the other room. And Sue's like,
Yeah,
Emily,
yeah.
no.
And like Sue's not into it.
No,
is what
no,
I'm
no.
gonna say.
No. She loves it. And then they have like this whole night. I'm curious about this. Do you think at this point Austin like very much knows and is just like, fuck it? Because
Listen,
they have sex in her bed, right? That's
yeah,
her bed.
and they like kind of gloss over this whole thing where she's like, I need a night with you. And they've been kind of building up this whole thing where like Sue will not let Austin take care of the baby like at all. And he's been like asking, and he's like, please let me take care of my son. I want to be a dad. We're going to challenge gender norms and all this stuff. And she's like, no. That's not what dads do. And then Emily's like, so you up? And she's like, here, Austin,
Take
have
the
a baby.
baby.
Bye.
Yeah, no, that's why I was like,
And it's like they keep cutting back and forth from like them boning to like Austin like burping the baby. And you're like, what?
yeah.
Was she just like, here, Austin, have the baby. I gotta go like fuck Emily for a little bit.
I mean,
Bye.
I literally think that's what happened. So
It's amazing. It's incredible.
It's pretty great. And so we get that. And then I think the next episode after that is the finale where like it's not as much Emily and Sue because it's the finale. And I feel like they're just like wrapping everything up. But we basically have like this whole thing that's just like in every war, the only people they don't kill is the poets because the poets have to tell the story. And then we just get this like time warp of Emily sitting in her room writing poetry day after day after day until she basically like to the words of her own poem. Like, I'm guessing this means that she died. What do you like? The ending looks like she's like going into the afterlife or something.
Oh, I don't know. That's not how I read it at all.
Oh, because she's like,
let's discuss.
So she's she's on a boat and she's rowing towards a bunch of mermaids.
Yep.
Okay, and that's the end.
And that's the
end.
You read that as her dying.
Yeah, because I felt like they kept time lapsing like so much in that room.
Yeah.
That I felt like they were trying a time lapse of like, okay, this is like time, and then like she's ready to like
interesting
come home to death because we've had death come up so much in the season.
We have.
So then why didn't death show up? Is what you're gonna say? I'm like,
well, no, I guess I read it differently because I think so. To me, right, like part of the whole thing about this show is like a lot of people thought it was really interesting to make a show that is like this wild and anachronistic and hip and vibrant and all of this stuff about someone who was essentially a shut-in, right? I mean, like that's what's most famously known about Emily Dickinson. And again, I mean, let's be clear before Ellie and I dive into all of this discussion is like, we are not the world's preeminent Emily Dickinson scholars.
Yeah.
Okay,
so like, don't take our historical.
We are people with a surface level
yeah.
understanding of Emily Dickinson who have also watched this show. Here we go. Let's do it.
Yes.
But what most people know about Emily Dickinson is like she was a shut-in, and the reason that her poetry is so incredible, besides just like she was a woman in a time where women were not poets, and who did all of these kind of like cool, weird, new things with her poetry that were not very famous or done at the time. But the other thing that I think is most incredible about Emily Dickinson's poetry is that she lived her entire life in one room and wrote about stuff that she like had no business being so good writing about, you know? And so I think to me, the way I read that scene is that whole time lapse thing is the transition from the show that we've watched of like your youthful wild times and like you as a person and like your life and your love and your like all of this now turns into like, and now you're writing. Like now you are locked up in this room. You do not leave. We're seeing seasons change and you're just writing. You're writing in the snow. You're writing by the fire. You're writing under a blanket. You're writing in the summer. You're just in this room writing. But as we see her write, she writes, I took my dog to the beach. And she is on a beach with a dog. Not her dog. We've never seen this dog. Right? But she writes it and she is there. And so it's like, to me, it was this really interesting, like, contrast of saying like we know she is in this room, she does not leave this room, but she's also not in the room, right?
Because her imagination can take her anywhere she wants
like
to
that's
go.
where she goes. She just goes there, out of the room. And it's like, that's what I kind of saw that scene as, is not like dying. I read it more as like, we are seeing the reality of a person. Like, how would you survive your entire life in one room that size?
Yeah.
You know? And I think to me, the answer is like, well, because you're not always there. You're wherever you are when you're writing. And that's where she, like, that time she was writing and she was on a beach being free in her boat to the mermaids.
Yes.
You know,
Also,
with
like,
her dog.
quite a gay ending. So just like
Quite a gay ending.
to just be like rowing a boat towards a bunch of mermaids on a thing. Like, I'm like, yeah, we get it. We get it.
But that was, I don't know, that was how I read the ending. But I don't think there's like a right or wrong answer.
yeah, I think the point of the ending is that it is more open-ended,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, I like that we do get like in episode 9 of season 3, we know that Sue and Emily are still in love and like they're still whatever. So like we get a good like resolution and a happy ending to their story. But yeah, then the final episode is really more about Emily's poetry, which is, to be fair, season 1 through 3, like, yes, we're talking about Emily and Sue, but like the themes that come up very often are that like Emily's poetry is the most important thing to her. It's like her poetry and Sue.
Yeah.
Right.
Her poetry and Sue. Well, and I think that's why, you know, because it's like when we talked about the, you know, season 2, okay, fine. But season 2 ends on, I think, like, there's a really important line when they have that scene in the greenhouse, when they're lying together in the greenhouse. And, well, Sue says, Emily, when I'm with you, that's the only time I feel alive. Emily responds, that's all I need. That's all I've ever needed. And she goes, I write for you, my Sue. And I think that like that captures a lot of the problems that they had in season 2, but I also think it like catapults you into what happens in season 3, which is like, up until season 3, Emily does not know how to love Sue
without writing her poetry. Like, she literally only knows how to write her sweet
like,
romantic nothings. And then Sue's like, actually, like, could you be here? Like, as a person, not a page.
She only knows how to love her by having her be the only person that she shares this with, right? And like, that is a constant problem for them, that I think she's doing it to be like, this is how important you are to me. Like, you're the only person who gets me, who can read these, who I can write poetry for. And by the end of season 3, like, that's why it's so important when she reads the poem at George's going away party, right? Because Sue has been trying to get her to read a poem at a damn salon for fucking ever. And she like will not do it. She's like, no, like, my poetry isn't for everyone. It's for you. And like, that's not it, you know? And Sue's like, this is not what I need. Like, I need you to be for me and your poetry to be for everyone.
Yes.
For the rest of the world. And so I feel like that's what season 3 is about, is for Emily to learn like how to love Sue, like how to be able to be like, oh, hey, I'm in love with Sue, and like scream it at a fucking New York gay bar. Like, that's the journey we all need. For
Emily and for Sue and
for every gay person. You should just be able to like scream your love in a, you know,
in a gay bar.
New York City gay bar with Walt Whitman.
Yes.
But like, that's what I think happens, is that when she has taken these steps to be like, oh, you want to be like with me, the person, and that means like, sure, I will read this poem like for everyone and for George, but mostly for Sue, you know. And it's not just like, oh, I'm like only reading this for you, like in the dark, in the still of the night, I will like sneak up into your room and like whisper it to you through the window. Like, no. I will sleep with you at night, and in the daytime I will read my poems in a damn salon where you can enjoy them with everyone else.
Yes.
Great. And they have that, and they get to that point, and then now she's ready to write
for the world.
The world.
But to be fair,
you know?
like, yes, she is, but she also like historically, she's really not writing for the world. She told Lavinia to burn all of her poems.
Yeah.
So she's writing, I think she's more writing once it gets to that point, then she's writing for herself. Yeah.
I think she's writing for her, but I think she's writing less just for Sue.
Yes.
It's not just for Sue anymore, and I think that's the important thing.
Yeah.
So that's what happens in Dickinson. That was quick.
Yeah.
We were so
fast.
We're so This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. And as we head into Thanksgiving time, I want to start by thanking my wife, Kelsey, who has not only listened to just about every episode of this podcast for 8 seasons now, but who also is the only reason I'm able to make time to record it every week. She takes the kids, gets them dinner, and gets them ready for bed just so that Ellie and I can come on and yell about gay things into each other's faces for an hour. So here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people you're grateful for in your life, including yourself. I've been in therapy for a long time now, and one thing that's so important about therapy is how it teaches you to be more intentional. And being intentional about gratitude and how to show that to the people you appreciate is just one of the many benefits that I've gotten from therapy over the years. If you've been thinking of starting therapy, consider giving BetterHelp a try. I know how hard it can be to find time for regular therapy, and BetterHelp is designed to be flexible and convenient for your schedule. You can fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. If you want to start being more intentional about gratitude in your life, visit betterhelp.com/lezhangout today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lezhangout.
Let's hang out.
For many businesses, the holiday season can be both an exciting and stressful time. With so many balls in the air, one thing you definitely want to know you can rely on is how you're selling your products. And with Shopify, you can rest easy knowing it's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. And when it comes to successful brands like Aloe, Allbirds, or Skims, an often overlooked secret is all the things that go on behind the scenes that make selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, if you take a peek behind that curtain, you'll see that Shopify is what makes it all possible. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, so that's more happy customers and way more sales going. It's true all the time, but especially this time of year, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use for Realm merch with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/realm. For many businesses, the holiday season can be both an exciting and stressful time. With so many balls in the air, one thing you definitely want to know you can rely on is how you're selling your products. And with Shopify, you can rest easy knowing it's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. And when it comes to successful brands like Aloe, Allbirds, or Skims, an often overlooked secret is all the things that go on behind the scenes that make selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, if you take a peek behind that curtain, you'll see that Shopify is what makes it all possible. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, so that's more happy customers and way more sales going. It's true all the time, but especially this time of year, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use for Realm merch with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/realm.
Streaming December 12th on Peacock. Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie are back.
That's hot. Loves it.
For a show-stopping reunion that will prove putting on an opera is anything but simple.
We're really good at this.
One thing's for sure, they won't be upstaged.
Good to have you back.
Come on, we've got a show to do.
Paris and Nicole, The Encore, a 3-part reunion special, streaming December 12th, only on Peacock.
Fast. So what do we want to talk about, Ellie? I know you've got like some
there's so much to talk about.
things we want to talk about.
Yeah, I tried to sort of just like separate things out by themes because one thing I really do like about Dickinson the show is that like each season really like tackles certain themes, and like and overarching, you sort of get like a more in-depth discussion of those. It's like through comedy, through different scenarios that are all of these people are real, right? As we say, like loosely based, right? All of the people in Dickinson are real.
I choose to believe Walt Whitman was actually Billy Eichner, and I can now believe no other.
Yes, for sure.
I have headcanoned Billy Eichner playing Walt Whitman back into Walt Whitman in my head, and I'm happier that way.
But yeah, so season 1, I feel like we talk a lot there, especially with Emily and Sue. There's this like loving somebody you can't be with, and I feel like we've done a lot of period pieces before. And to me, this does not feel the same.
Mm-hmm. For so many reasons.
For a lot of reasons. So maybe I just want to talk...
The sick beats, for one.
Yeah, so maybe I just want to talk about that. But a few things that I like about it, that like it is period, but it's a little bit more modern, is that like they love each other, but like it's not as tortured. Like, yes, it's tortured. But like these two people, Emily and Sue, from season 1 through season 3, we know they're gonna be together because we also like sort of know the history of them.
Yeah.
Right? Like anytime you talk about Emily Dickinson, you're like, oh, and Sue. Like, we know this. So I don't know. I think like there's this whole thing like of Emily and Sue learning, like Emily really learning like why Sue can't be with her in the way that she wants. But I don't know. I just feel like they like really structured their relationship so that by the end of season 3, like they're in a place where like they can really be together in like the best way that was possible for the time.
Which is Austin watching the baby.
Yeah, like which is literally her husband watching the baby while they sleep together, and her husband
while
being
they
like,
sleep together.
And her husband being like, well, that's my sister, so cool. You know? So
talk about the girl next door.
Yeah.
It's your sister.
Yes. I don't know. So I just,
the twist no one was looking for.
But I just really like that about this. I think even too, they didn't put this in in Dickinson, but because, you know, you're watching it and you start just like, I just start Googling so much shit. I'm like, Austin Dickinson, like what was he really like? He did have like a pretty like well-known affair himself, but it was not with Jane. Jane Humphrey is a real person, but like her character arc is not accurate at all. Like
I mean, many of them are. Let's be real.
Most of like the more secondary characters, their character arcs are not accurate.
Yeah.
Because we don't know really that much about them. Like literally all we know is that she was one of Emily Dickinson's friends. That's like we have the name and like who she is. So then they filled so much.
It's what is so interesting though is how much of the show it's interesting, and also like I'm sure is probably really frustrating for anyone who like does want to know like historical accurate facts, because so much of it is like so close or like very actually based in fact, and also so much of it is so not, and it is so hard to tell the difference between the two, because some of it is like silly stuff where it's like she did win a baking contest.
Yes.
Right? And then other stuff is like Fraser Stearns was a soldier from Amherst. I think he was like the son of the mayor of Amherst or something, who like went to war and died. And a lot of it, there's like a lot of like historical things where it's like they have that scene where, is it George who comes back and is like, Fraser is killed, like he's yelling like Fraser is killed or something. And like that was a real thing that happened. Like someone ran into town yelling that.
Yeah.
Right? Like when Fraser Stearns was killed in war. And so it's like there's all sorts of stuff like that where it's like, that's all real. Was he a hallucination ghost who like predicted his own death to Emily Dickinson and like taught her lessons about the importance of fame and your legacy? Less accurate, but
maybe not. Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't there. I can't say, you know. But so it's like there's always this weird sort of muddled gray area between the fact and the fiction of it that is, to me, I love it. Anyone who like cares deeply about historical accuracy probably loves it less, is my guess.
Yes. Also, like in terms of historical accuracy, I just like really do want to go on the point of like of Emily and Sue that like it's like very much confirmed they were together like from her writings.
God, yes.
And even there probably were even more between the two of them. So actually, Austen Dickinson, the woman that he had an affair with, was also a publisher and published some of Emily Dickinson's poems, okay? And purposefully took Sue's name out of a bunch of her poems.
Yeah.
So like even so the whatever we do have like is that's definitively about Sue. We also probably have a lot more that like were about Sue that were redacted.
Well, that were redacted, or even just like, I mean, Emily was a poet. Like anyone who writes anything, like anything, I'm just gonna say anything, like poems, songs, books, whatever, like everyone knows that it's like, even when you're not writing about like explicitly
like,
about the thing you're writing about. Yeah, like I'm sure there are even more poems that are about Sue that didn't even say Sue to begin with, like whether or not it was turned into nature, you know, or however they redacted her name out of a bunch of the ones where it did say Sue, like, because that's what you do when you're writing, you know, you're writing about like this thing, but you're really talking about this thing over here.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's just like one of the things that I think is important is like, okay, all I really care about in terms of historical accuracy is like that we know that they were together. And like this is like, then we can sort of explore that. But yeah. I think too, season 1 did a really good job of, and that's I will keep going to season 2 again, but that's why season 2 was really frustrating because
how did you feel about season 2?
Well,
Ellie?
I'm sorry, but Emily Dickinson, okay, the character of Emily Dickinson in season 1 was very strong-willed. Was very like against gender roles, would like not let anyone tell her who she was or like what she could or couldn't do, right? And so like then we go to season 2 and I feel like she's just completely shifted her personality and her like her moral compass, or like moral compass isn't right, like her confidence.
Yeah.
Like she's completely just like shifted who she is and is just like, oh yeah, let me give up all of my autonomy to this other person. So I really like season 1 because it played with the gender roles. We have the scene where Sue and Emily are literally dressed as men going to college.
Mm-hmm.
And Emily's like, why can't women go to college? I don't understand this. And then when they go to the future in season 3, she's like, holy shit, women are in college.
Yeah.
So it's like sort of a cool juxtaposition. And she fights so hard against her father. And then season 3, she's like, no, I love my dad and blah, blah, blah.
I know. It's so funny because, yeah, see, I like season 2, I get it. I get why you hate it. I also get the importance of it in a lot of respects. Whereas like I hated the whole like Emily like just losing, I don't know, the whole Edward thing in season 3. I was like, what are you doing? What is this? Like that bothered me, I think, more than a lot of stuff in season 2, because season 2 in some respects I get it, like she doesn't have Sue, like she has built this whole thing of writing around Sue, and then she's like, okay, well, it can't be Sue, but I could be famous, like. And we've all been there. Like every person has had that moment of being like, I just want to be a star, you know?
Have we? I don't understand that urge.
Yeah, you've never heard of such a thing, Ellie.
No. Makes no sense. No.
Like you chase that 15 minutes, you know? And so I get it. And I think like that's what you're watching, is you're watching her realize like, oh, hey, I handed somebody else all of this power and control over me, and I shouldn't have done that. Bad me. That was a bad call. Shouldn't have done that. That's not the right answer here. So like, fine. The whole thing with her dad, I'm just like, what is happening? Like he's such a douche. He's so terrible.
She's like been like,
and it's like
consistently telling her like, you shouldn't be a writer because you're a woman. Your brother like is always gonna get everything. Like I'm gonna give him everything that I have, even though he's been like honestly like a huge mess.
A man-child.
And a man-child. Like he just is so misogynistic. He calls his wife mother. Like, stop. Like you should not be defending this man.
Yeah, listen. It's given strong Mike Pence vibes for me. I'm not here for it. It's not good.
Yeah. It's so much.
It's not good. So yeah, I don't know. I hated that part of season 3, the whole thing with her dad. But I just like this show. I love this show. It's really interesting to me too, because it's like, you know, we talk about the historical accuracy, and I really, when we started watching it and knowing what I knew about it, that I was like, I did not expect this show to work for me. You know, like, this is what I keep saying about it, is the whole idea of like, oh, it's going to be anachronistic, like the music is like all wildly out of time,
yeah.
and the way that they talk, and like the jokes that they're making, like, for the audience, in that kind of like breaking the fourth wall sort of way, that they're like making jokes for us, you know, like out of the scene that they're in, that I did not think it was going to work for me. And it's perfect. Like, to me, it's perfect. Everything always lands perfectly. The music is chef's kiss. Like, just fucking perfect every time. It's like annoying how good the music is in this show. And to me, I feel like it's so well done in ways that I'm like, why has this not been done this well before? Because so many things have tried to do anachronistic period pieces, and they work so badly so much of the time.
I mean,
you know?
I think it's like literally a perfect, it's just a perfect combination, where I feel like the writing's really good, but also like each actor is like, just, I don't know, you believe them.
Yes.
Every single one.
Yes.
In the way that they're like just ridiculous enough, but just like understandable enough. Like, I don't know, they do a really good job with the acting, I think.
And what's funny about it is, usually to me, the thing with like mixing like period pieces with anachronisms is it takes you out of it, right? Like, listen, okay, everyone has done this, where it's like, how many things have we all watched, done as a school project, seen put on as a play, and it's not like they're always bad, but we have all sat through a million things of like, it's Shakespeare, but set in an 80s beachside town. And you're like, okay.
Are you talking about like the Leonardo DiCaprio Romeo and Juliet? Because that one,
I mean, I wasn't specifically, but like, yes. But, and like, sometimes it can work. I'm not going to say it doesn't work, right? But it's so much more common, especially because it's done so often with Shakespeare, that it's done the other way around. The language stays old, the setting is updated, right? Which, like, fine. Okay. Also, there are a lot of times where people have tried to do the, like, let's take the themes or the story or the ideas, like, and we'll put all of it in a contemporary setting and whatever. And like, sometimes, like, again, they're all Shakespeare, and sometimes they fail for me for the same reason, because you're like, okay, but you're using like the plot of something that makes no sense in here, and then you're like trying to pretend that it all makes sense. And this,
I think the crazy thing about this is, because so much of what's happening is repeating itself.
What do you mean? The way that it like relates to modern day. Yes, there is that, but that's not what I loved about it. What I loved about it, and like when Kelsey and I first started watching it, we like had this whole conversation about like, why does it work so well? And what we were talking about is that when you go back and you watch things like this, and you watch period shows, and you know, like, go see Shakespeare or whatever, one of the things that's always so hard about it is that people do it in a way that is accurate to the way that they spoke then. But to us, it is wildly unrelatable, right? Like, nobody goes to see Shakespeare and is like, oh, yeah, do you bite your thumb at me, sir? Like, nobody is like super hit by those words. You're just not, because that's not how we talk anymore.
Yes.
And what works for me about this is that, like, that is how they talked then. Like, people had slang. Kids had things that they said that, like, they were like, oh, we're different than our parents' generation. Like, people had common, current, contemporary, hip shit that they were saying with each other. That was what it was at the time, and it's not now. And so it makes it feel like they are just these old, stodgy, dusty people that they weren't. Like, they were teenagers, and they were, like, having lit parties at the time, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's just something to me that is, like, so relatable And so like it immerses you more in the period of it for some reason, having them speak wildly out of period to me. That like I love watching people sit around. Like I think it's somewhere in season 1 and I can't remember exactly what she says, but it's like Austin's just like being Austin about something, I think, and like Emily walks by him, like walks down the stairs and like walks by him, and I think she just goes like, "Don't be a dick, Austin," or like something. And I'm like, yes, like no teenagers, even in the 1850s, were not going to call their brother a dick sometimes when he was being a dick. Like, would they have said it with that word? No. They would have called him whatever was going to be the like analog in their time period of that. But that's what she was doing. Like, and when you just get to watch characters and you're like, yeah, sure, whatever you would have said then, I get it. I get what you're saying. You're telling him to not be a dick. I get it.
Yes.
Like when Ship does his whole like, like novel and chill. And you're like, yeah, that's what you would have done. You would have been like, yeah, what are we going to do while we like stay at home with the girl I want to marry in her parents' house?
Yeah, like let's read a book and have sex. And you're like, okay,
and, like,
here we go.
Yeah, novel and chill.
Yeah.
Like it's relatable. It like puts you so much more into it in a way that like I did not think it would, and it was flawless. Everything about the writing in this show to me, I just love it. I just think it's so good. It's so good.
I agree.
It's frustratingly good. I love it.
I know. Well, that was like one of the only things that I liked about season 2 is, as I was sort of saying before, is like the like actual historical themes, right? Because you have really this whole sensational journalism paper, right? And they do keep making these jokes of like, print journalism will never die. Like, and you're just like, ha 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 ha. You know, but like I do feel like those nods to us watching at home does make it more like, it brings you into their worlds. Like, and you're still like, I think everything else around them is the period. So like, cool, right? Because like, you still understand what time period you're in because it looks like the time period. Like, we're not like, oh, surprised that it's in this time period, because they're not they're wearing outfits from that time period.
There are corsets everywhere.
You completely understand, when Emily Dickinson lived. They're talking about like events that are happening around them. Like, you understand the time period.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like, because like even the second season, right, is like leading up to Civil War, and then the third season is like we're in the Civil War, and that too, like, is very much like they keep like mentioning all kinds of stuff that like we're talking about now, where they're like, oh well, I have relatives in the South, and like they're nice people, and or like I don't know, like there's just so many things that they're saying that you're like, this could literally be something that someone says on Facebook tomorrow, right? Where they're like, we just live in such polarizing times, and like,
they do it so well, like so pointedly, and so just really well.
And one of the other things I do love about it is like all of like, I think the first season didn't do as good of a job on it, and I think that they probably like got some feedback from the audience that like they really incorporated into season 2, which is that like all the Black characters in season 1 were like very, very secondary, like tertiary, like all the way down. And then in the second season, they really focused a lot more on the Black characters, on Henry, on Betty, on them like creating their own revolution, and Austin being a part of that, like trying to help make a difference. They talked a bit about abolition in season 1. What are your views on it? Whereas Mr. Dickinson was like, oh, I don't know, like still being a dick. So that is one thing that I did also like about season 2, is that we do dig more into the backstory of like all of the Black characters that we see that we like never got. And we did get some of this in season 1, them also like calling out the Dickinsons on their shit. Like, I love when Henry's like, Emily Dickinson, can you like, life is not hard for you.
Yeah.
Like, where she's just like, the world is so like, she's so like upset about the world. And it's like, yes, Emily, true. But Henry's like, I'm sitting here tuning your piano, and you like want me to pretend to be Othello. Like there's a disconnect here with you and your words. And
he's like, your problems and other people's problems, not the same thing.
Yeah. Also, fun fact, Io, who plays Hattie, I literally did theater with her when I was in elementary school.
Incredible.
So I saw her, and she wrote a few episodes too. I think she wrote, there's one where they like have a dance party in the barn. Do you know that one? I think she was a co-writer on
she
that
wrote
episode.
that.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
So yeah, that was also cool. I was like, oh shit, I know her.
That's such a good episode too.
It was a really
that's the nobody episode, right? Like
Yeah.
that's where the one where Emily's invisible.
Mhm.
That's such a great episode.
Yeah. And I mean, there's just so many themes that they tackle of like that episode in particular, talking about like Black joy, right? Where they're like,
Yeah.
let's celebrate. Like, obviously, there's a lot of shit going on, but like, let's celebrate and like be happy and have some joy here. And so I just like, it's a great episode. And they're like voguing too. So it also is like right? They're bringing even more contemporary stuff in there too.
Yep.
Where they're like, even their dancing is contemporary. And you're like, this still feels right.
Yeah.
It's so good. I think
It's
this is
so
a really
good.
interesting Lez-ssentials too, because as much as I'm like, oh, season 2 is not about Sue and Emily, this show is still great because the show is not all about Sue and Emily.
No, their relationship is pretty terrible in that season though, but the show itself is still great.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I'm curious because I know you put a note here in it, and I know people have a lot of opinions on Sue and Emily in a general, like Sue and Emily, the characters in this show, in a general sense. I'm curious. What are your thoughts, Ellie?
I honestly just started like thinking about this today because when I was reading, people were like, Sue and Emily are toxic, or other people were like, they're not. I don't necessarily think they're toxic. I don't think they're toxic. I do think that they are very different and they have a very hard time communicating with each other. So like that's why like I think season 3 is really important for them, because it's like they figure out better how to communicate with each other. But
Yeah.
I don't necessarily feel like they're toxic. I don't know, like toxic feels like too intense, because I guess there's like an obsession element, right? Like Emily's obsessed with Sue, which is like why like most of her poems and like so many of her letters are to her. But I also feel like, and there's like a secrecy to their relationship, right? Because there has to be. So they can't fully be like open and honest with the people around them. But I don't know. I still just feel like it's like they're being the least toxic they could possibly be for the circumstances that they're in.
I agree, because what's funny is I have seen things with people talking about like their relationship is toxic. I've seen a lot of things with people who do not like Sue. Like people have a whole lot of issues with Sue. Well, Sue is a complicated character. So like people have a lot of problems with, especially season 2, Sue, right? Because they're like, oh my God, like you're crazy and you're like pushing her away, but then having an affair, and then like telling her that like you only ever feel things with her. And then season 3, she's like, how dare you send your writing to like anybody but me? And she like gets all jealous and whatever. So like, I get it. I mean, what I think is interesting about it is that we, the queer community, let me speak for all of us, we, the queer community, we're so hard to please in a lot of ways, because we want our characters to be in couples and we want them to have happy endings, but also we want interesting characters and drama and journeys and all of this stuff. And I feel like this has all of that to me. Like, they are complicated people with trauma and
also
baggage.
Sue has a lot of trauma.
Like a lot of trauma.
Far more
and
trauma than Emily.
Yes, for sure. And that's why I think it's interesting that like Sue gets a lot of hate, but I think Sue as a character, as she's written to me over the entire course of this show, I think has like the most perfectly plotted out character growth that like you could put in a show, you know? And that's why I think it's funny to me, because you look at so much of this stuff, like all I can think right now, because I just happened to have seen this TikTok today and it made me laugh, but it was this like stand-up comedian who was doing this whole thing about how like, you know, oh, like everyone always like, you know, talks about like leading up to getting married, like planning for your wedding and all this stuff. And she's like, that's a sprint. You're like sprint. And you like go through like the, you know, like planning and the dress and the venue and the whatever. And it's like, that's just you like sprint, and then you like finish your sprint and you're like, and then you look ahead of you and there's just like the beginning of like a marathon. And like that marathon is
marriage,
staying married,
yeah.
right? Like, and she like, you know, like the whole, it's like she has all these jokes about like, how do people look when they finish a sprint versus how do people look when they finish a marathon? But I think the reason that it's coming to mind right now as we talk about Emily and Sue's relationship and like Sue as a character to me is, to me, the whole show is like watching two people work through their shit and learn how to have a not toxic relationship finally with each other.
Yes.
And like you can look at that and say like, they're so toxic, but I feel like it ignores where they get to.
Yeah.
Like
where
if
the
all
end
of you
is. Yeah.
Right. Like because what you watch is all of the stuff that they need to get through to work past that and get to the place that we always ask for them to get to, which is like, hey, two people who have a happy ending and have any hope of a future together, that's what that looks like. Is like sometimes it's gonna look shitty and toxic because sometimes we all have shitty like stuff that we have to get through. And like, so I don't know, I get it, but it's also like I've seen a lot of things too with people who like go off on season 3 Sue and the baby and how like clingy and needy and demanding and whatever she is, and I'm like, dude, have you ever had
I'm like,
a newborn?
Yeah,
like,
I'm also like, girl is basically raising this child on her own, and like her husband's not there and her lover's also not wanting to help, so like, yeah,
yes,
I think
she literally
she's just
has
asking for what she needs.
nothing.
She's literally just asking for what she needs. Like, I don't feel like she's like overly demanding.
I mean, she has her moments, but also, to be fair, I'm like, listen, I had a newborn in like fucking 2018 when like we live in a time of endless like connection and phones and texts and like social media, and like you have the whole world in your pocket, and like it's lonely as shit.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks. You're like so separated and you can't ever, like, there is no time. You don't ever have time for yourself. And so I'm like, do I get it? Like, is she a little crazy? Yes, of course she is. When is she ever going to have, like, what does she have? What does she have? You know, it's like, yes, you have your baby and that's great and you're a mother and like, yes, you love your child. But I'm like, dude, she needs a break. She needs a friend. She needs to like sit and talk to someone. And like every time she talks to Emily all season, you know, like Emily's just like, my poems, my poems, my poems, my poems, my poems. And Sue's just like, I just need to see you as a human person in my life, please. And then Sue's like, wow, all you want to do is like be with me, and I'm just going to go and send my poems to someone else now. And I'm like,
Yep.
Jesus. Like, can you imagine if like the love of your life, the only thing that they had that like connected you to them still was like sending you this poetry and telling you how like you are the only person that they want to read their poems, and like you're the only person who gets them, and that they value like you above all else, and like these poems are just for you, and then they never see you because all they're ever doing is writing poetry, and then instead they're like, actually, you don't seem to have time for my poems anymore because you're so busy with your baby, so like I'm gonna send them to this dude I've never met.
Yeah, to this literal random man. Like, why are we doing
what?
this?
And I'm like, of course she goes crazy.
Yes. Also, I'm like, let's super quickly, as you're saying crazy, let's speak a little bit, because there's a really like good episode about mental health. And also like they literally go to, like, they call them insane asylums in the Times. So that's what I will call it. But go to the insane asylum. And basically like it's a commentary on like women being crazy, because there also is like, there's a lot of speculation about Emily Dickinson. Like people think like maybe she was manic bipolar or like all kinds of other things going on. And it's like, okay, even if she was, that problem, I don't know. At this point in my life, I'm like, you know what? Whatever was going on in her brain helped her create this freaking poetry. Yeah. Her imagination was working like crazy because she was neurodivergent. Like, and that's freaking amazing, you know? So it's like,
Yeah.
but she goes there and like the guy's literally like, you have to commit your daughter. And it's the only time that Mr. Dickinson does anything decent is he's like, I'm not gonna,
I know.
Oh, he does the minimum. I'm not going to give you my daughter for the insane asylum. But you find, you know, there's like, I thought it was a really cool scene where they have everyone in the basement, right? And it's like, one of them is like, they didn't understand my gender. Another one is like, oh, I was at a women's suffrage rally.
Yeah.
And like, there's like, all kinds of different reasons why they're there that are all just like being an independent
Women
thinking.
be crazy.
Yeah, like women be crazy. And it's like, actually,
I'm sorry, your woman has opinions and thoughts. Better commit her.
Exactly. So I know that like they briefly touched on that, but I was happy that they did touch on that because that is a decent part of the Emily Dickinson discourse. And so to like throw it in the show and be like, she doesn't need to be committed. Like, I just thought it was like good for them to like throw that out there, especially when she's been called crazy like constantly. Oh, like our crazy sister. We're all normal here. Emily's the crazy one. And then Lavinia's
in the finale. Oh my God. I love Lavinia so much.
Yeah.
So much. Well, and that's like, I agree. I think they do a really good job of calling that out all the time where they're constantly highlighting how like, oh, but like Emily's the crazy one around here. And like everyone's fucking bonkers. Like everyone's batshit.
Yes.
Everyone, it's a little bit much and a little crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. I just wanted to know because I agree. It's not like I'm going to say Emily and Sue are like, as shown on screen, the perfect relationship. No, I mean, they're not. But I feel like at least they are people who are working their way towards one another.
Yeah. And I do feel like it's like you could see like each of them sort of, each of them had to work on their own shit. And like I said, like freaking, I don't know, everyone is being very hard on Sue and is like, she has had so much trauma. She married a man she didn't want to marry. Because she literally needed to survive.
Because her entire family died.
To survive, because her entire family died. She had a miscarriage. There's all kinds of things that just were like, but building up in her. And then you're going to be like, oh, well, she sucks. It's like, she was going through a lot of shit. And to be fair, was Emily actually there for her? Did she ask her, how are you doing? Are you okay? Yeah. So like,
or did she constantly write her poems and then ask her about her poems and her thoughts on her poems? And to be fair,
like if we're talking about like character development, like Emily Dickinson as a character is like pretty selfish, I would say.
Yeah.
You know?
Extremely
selfish, very self-involved. But like that self-involvedness is like what led to her just like feeling like all of her thoughts were so important to get written down. And that's like why we have so much of her poetry. But yeah, so I think they both had their shit, but I agree. Like what do you want? Like, what do you want from us? Like, this is complicated, interesting, like goes in a lot of different directions and
gay as fuck.
And gay as hell. We get a lot of really, really good sex scenes, a lot of good kissing scenes, a lot of good, just like, communication between the two of them that's very
Ella
romantic.
Hunt queer in real life.
Yes.
I mean,
like
listen.
there's a lot of like boxes that this checks off in terms of like representation. Are Emily and Sue like my favorite couple ever? I would not say yes. I think it's a good representation. Like I would put it in a top tier of like, oh yeah, that's a pretty good queer representation.
Yeah.
Where do Emily and Sue land for you in terms of like?
Yeah, they're up there. I mean, I feel like the show to me outstrips the relationship. Like would I say Emily and Sue are like my top ship? No. But do I think Dickinson is one of like what I would consider one of the best shows that I've watched?
Yes.
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
Like I think it's amazing. I think it's incredible. I love it.
Agreed.
It happens to contain their relationship, which I enjoy watching. And, you know, listen, I mean, if we're, again, like what we talked about with the whole finale of season 2, I'm like, what a great fucking scene.
I know.
Just
also, like, yeah, like worth watching some YouTube compilations. But I also do feel like if you sit down and you watch the show, like anyone who's listening, if you've listened through this whole thing and you haven't seen the show yet, I'm so sorry because we gave many spoilers. But I would just say, like, go into the show knowing that it's a show worth watching with good queer content, not shows that because I feel like there's other shows that I've watched in the past that are like, all right, I have to get through this show to get to the gay, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit here waiting for it. And it's like, no, like actually every single episode is interesting.
It's a great show.
All of the characters are great. I'm not just watching it for Emily and Sue, which I think is why too I'm not like putting them as much on a pedestal. But I agree. It's like, it is because the show itself is just like a great piece of art.
Yeah. And it's the only thing that's disappointing to me is I know that there are far fewer people who have Apple TV, and I think that's made it so a lot fewer people have watched it. But I also know it is like, I think it's like one of the most popular shows they've had.
As it
it's like
be.
Ted Lasso and Dickinson, I think, are like pretty high up on the Apple TV rankings. It is good enough that I will actually like tell people like it is worth it. Like get it for a month. If you bought a new phone, you like upgraded your phone, you got a new laptop, like you get a year of free Apple TV. Sign up for that year. Like even if you don't keep it, it is worth it just to watch this. Like that's how good I think this show is I'm like, just pay for a month. It's that good. Like you'd rent a movie for that price, pay for a month of Apple TV and like watch this show. It's incredible.
I just because I watched season 1 on a free trial last year, and then I dropped off for season 2 and 3 because I was done with my free trial. I got another 7-day free trial this past week and watched season 2 and 3 in 7 days.
There you go.
All right.
It's so good.
It is worth it.
How many of those days are left? You got to catch up on Ted Lasso because
I know. I might just bite the bullet and freaking just buy Apple TV. But I'm like, I've been trying to be like, let me just get it for free as long as I can.
Do you have any other things weighing on your heart that you need to share with us? We haven't hit like 2 hours yet, so
I know we're so
time.
close. I think I just have one more thing that I've sort of touched on before, but is always, it's just important to me, and I don't care. I'm not gonna apologize for it being important to me, but like sex scenes and lesbian content is important to me. So like for Dickinson, I feel like a few things that I really like is like we do get like very realistic lesbian sex scenes. We literally get a scene where Sue is fingering Emily until she orgasms. And I'm like, great. And that's like it, right? Like that's the act that they did that night. And then Sue's like, all right, I'm done. Let's cuddle. Right? Like I want to see that. Like it doesn't have to be like this like dramatic shot. Like let's look at their back of their knees for a minute. But like giving us a few different versions of what sex between these two women looks like, I really love. And some of those do mean like there is a whole scene where like Sue's like kissing Emily's knee and like stroking her body, and like that's great too. But I just like that there's a diversity of lesbian sex scenes.
All of them, to me at least, it felt very female gazy. You know, like none of the scenes filmed between the two of them, whether it's them kissing, whether it's them in bed, whatever, like they did not feel like the male gaze to me. And that, again, like that is always important in our queer content. That like the end of season 3, like the episode where they have that whole like take the baby Austin, that was a great filmed scene. That was really well done. Right. Yep. And again, and like, it's not even that it's like super explicit or like super graphic or anything. It's just filmed well. And I feel like it's filmed in a believable way where you are like, yes, women who enjoy women will enjoy watching this.
Exactly.
Because
it also
we
is
do.
like,
you know what we love? We love a soft curve. We love eyes. We love all of this. We love this.
I'm like, this is not TMI, but whatever. But I also do feel like watching it, I could like put myself in that position and be like, yeah, this is something that's familiar to me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like rather than like, I don't like, for another example.
I get you, Ellie. I get it.
Blue is the warmest color. Like that sex scene. I'm like, I can't place myself in it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, that's not, I don't see myself like replacing one of those people. And I'm like, yeah, I've done that before. Like, you know, so I just feel like to me, it felt very familiar. And like you said, very tasteful and for us.
Yeah, it's intimate. It's not gratuitous. I really enjoyed them.
I love them. But that's my
however
last
you
thing.
feel about their relationship aside, like just the filming of those scenes, like the cinematography of it alone, and I think also like believable acting.
Yes.
You know, like I think they did a really good job with these characters and telling the story that they're telling, and like I think like they as actors had great chemistry together, and I think they used it really well in the show, and it just works.
Some of the like when they zoom in on Ella Hunt's face, and like she looks madly in love.
Yeah, dude.
Like,
it's a lot. It's a lot.
good.
Ella Hunt is a lot in this
She
show.
does a great job.
Sometimes.
She does a great job.
Ella Hunt sticking Haley Steinfeld's finger in her mouth is a lot.
Yeah, that was a lot.
That
was a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah. But I'm a fan.
Let's leave it at that.
Let's leave it at that. All right, and on that note, like, do you want to head into our Q and Gay?
I would love to do some Q and Gay right now.
Let's do it.
Q and gay.
Question number 1. What's your favorite season of Dickinson? A1, B2, C3.
It's so hard. I love a lot of season 1, but I think season 3 is my favorite. It's just, I love it, but I really like it from a broader storytelling perspective. I just love what they did with the season. I think it's brilliant.
I also, to piggyback off of that, we didn't talk that much about this in the episode. I love the like they did so much like magical realism type stuff in season 3 that really worked well. Like you were like, like the moving into the future works so well. Like there's a whole part where like Emily goes into like the circles of hell that work really well. So good. I love season 3 as well. That's my favorite season.
Okay, question 2. What is your favorite Emily Dickinson poem out of A, I Taste a Liquor Never Brewed, B, Wild Nights, Wild Nights, C, One Sister Have I in Our House, or D, Because I Could Not Stop for Death?
I mean, to be fair, this show also gave me like much more appreciation for Emily Dickinson's poems. Just hearing them read out loud, you're like, damn, this bitch could write. I really love Because I Could Not Stop for Death.
Me too. It's so funny because I was expecting you would pick any of the other ones, and I don't know why, but also Because I Could Not Stop for Death is always the Emily Dickinson poem I've known the best. And it still slaps. Listen.
It really does. And I love how
great.
death is portrayed by Wiz Khalifa in the show.
He's fantastic. He's so good.
But yeah, I don't know. There's something about it. It just sticks with you, I think. Maybe it's the meter of it that like really gets locked in, but I just really like that one. All right.
Good choice.
Question number 3. What's your favorite Sue and Emily moment? A, the orchard in the rain. B, the only true thing I'll ever feel is my love for you. C, Sue wanting to raise her baby with Emily. Or D, dressing like dudes to go to class.
These are impossible. I don't know how to choose. Okay, I'm gonna say I love Sue wanting to raise her baby with Emily because I feel like, again, it's the kind of thing that to me feels very anachronistic. Like, I can't say whether I think either one of them would have even
considered
been able to envision that as an option. And so I love that they had that so explicitly said, to have Sue like voicing something that I think hits queer people differently now, right? Like to have someone say like, wow, it's the 1850s and here I am with my newborn baby that I had with your brother, and to have someone like really put into words like, why can't we have a family together? Like, why can't I raise this baby with you, just the two of us, and this could be our family? And I'm like, ugh. Because even now, like, even I still have days where I am like, wow, I have a wife and children and a house, and that's my life. And like, that still feels like there are people on this earth today who can barely envision that as being a possibility for them. So I don't know, like, to me, I feel like that's the kind of scene that might not hit everyone the way that I think it hits, like, queer people who watch it, you know?
That shit hit hard. You're just like...
It hits hard. It does.
Why can't they run away together?
I love it.
Yeah, that's tough.
Okay, question 4, Ellie. Who's the best historical writer guest character on Dickinson out of A, Henry David Thoreau, B, Louisa May Alcott, C, Walt Whitman, or D, Sylvia Plath?
I know what your answer is, but I gotta go with Sylvia Plath. I loved that episode.
It's a valid answer.
Sylvia Plath just, I don't know, just was perfect. Like the character and the acting was so good. Just like how flippant she was with like Emily Dickinson and Lavinia being like, you're really committing to this bit, huh? And like she called them lesbians. Like, she just hit every mark for me, really.
She was great. What a like great bit part. Just
it was
incredible.
So good. All right, question number 5. Are you more of an A, Emily, B, Sue, C, Lavinia, or D, Mrs. Dickinson?
Listen, I don't know if I want this to be the answer, but I know you know as well as I do, Ellie, that I am an Emily.
It's okay.
I know that you know this because you have also suffered through enough moments of me being like, did you read my poem? What did you think of my poem?
What did you think of my poem?
Ellie, did you listen to the beta of the song I wrote? Tell me about these lyrics. Do you want me to go through all of the things about the lyrics and why I put them in there and what this is referencing and what this is talking about? And did you get this? Did you catch up? Did you catch on this? Did you want me to, should I explain this to you? Oh my God, did you listen? I wrote another verse. I know you know I'm an Emily.
It's okay. It's okay. And Emily is the greatest poet of all time. So, it's okay to be an Emily.
Yeah, I don't mean it that way, but I just, the spirit of it.
Yes, the spirit of like, here's my work. Listen to it. Pay attention. Tell me I'm good.
Please.
Let me know if it's good. I mean, to be fair.
What did you think about it?
Yeah.
Is it okay? Was it good?
Yeah.
Did you like it? What did you read it? Do you need me to, should I write it differently?
Yeah. To be fair, like, it's like I feel like for Emily and for you, it is like I really put a lot of work into this. Like, I hope you like it. Like, please tell me that you like it. Because it's my heart here throwing it here to you. So
all I have to say is God bless you and Kelsey who have to put up with all of that from me.
So I'm your Sue. But I think I would be Lavinia.
I could see that.
I would totally rock being Lavinia. She's just like...
I'm a stare at a sheep.
Yeah, the performance art aspect. Like, she's so dramatic. Like... Yeah.
She's very dramatic.
She's so dramatic.
Lavinia is the center of Lavinia's world.
Yes.
In the most delightful way. Yes. I love it.
I don't have like the boy crazy aspect of Lavinia, but the personality I think I vibe with. Yeah.
See? And what does it tell you?
Season 2
love
Lavinia. Season 2
hey.
Lavinia is me. That's the only
her.
character development I like in season 2 is Lavinia.
I just love her. That's all.
I love it. Remember, you can give us your own answers to this episode's Q&A questions on our Twitter at @LesHangoutPod. Before we go, we're going to also do our drinking game rules because we have drinking game rules for every Lez-ssentials. We will say, make sure you drink responsibly. And
please do not. We need a waiver. We need to get a waiver for people.
If you're going to do this, sign the waiver before.
Do not hold this against us if you actually try to do this.
Yes.
You may or may not die.
Take it easy if you feel like you're getting too drunk. But if you want to have a fun night with your partner or your friends and you want to watch some Dickinson and do some of these drinking game rules, here they are. 1, anytime Emily meets with Death, her boyfriend. 2, anytime someone says something anachronistic. 3, anytime someone calls Emily out for her privilege, because we love when that happens. 4, anytime Lavinia talks about her cats. 5, anytime Emily and Sue are naked in bed together. Here for that. 6, anytime Emily gets published. So that's only like the one time she gets published. So if it's like something got published and they're like, hey, Emily, look at your thing again and again. Only drink for the first time that poem was published, okay? Do not want you guys getting crazy on that one. 7, anytime a new famous author's character is introduced. So only when they're introduced. Don't keep drinking as they're sitting in the...
Waterfall.
Yeah. Only when you see them for the first time. And 8, anytime all 4 of the popular kids show up to a party and strike a pose.
I love
Which
them.
happens at most parties. I was cracking up as I was watching all of the episodes that they do strike a pose like every time they walk into a room, which is amazing. Oh, man. That was a doozy, Lee. It was a lot of content.
We made it.
A lot of content.
We made it.
I do have like a very newfound love and respect for Emily Dickinson, though, after watching Dickinson.
Yeah.
I really do.
I agree.
Let me hear you say hip, 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 well, yeah.
We love hearing from all of you. We love continuing to build this community, and we just want to shout out some of our favorite things every episode. And this week, we want to shout out someone who messaged us on Instagram to recommend we were talking about how most of our Lez-ssentials, we've been doing a lot of newer stuff, and sometimes it's just, we like to find some older movies. So they suggested a 1998 film that came highly recommended. So I hear the international title is Show Me Love, but the original Swedish title is I'm gonna do my best to pronounce this correctly.
She's been practicing.
So I think it's pronounced fucking Umul.
Nice.
I'm into it. So listen, it's on our list. Make sure we both get a chance to watch it and see what we think. But thank you, Frida, for reaching out and giving us the suggestion. We always love some new ideas of what to watch.
Oh, yeah. Also, I would like to shout out the Swan Queen fandom because we have had a hilarious week this week with everyone just like going wild over our Swan Queen should have been gay.
We
knew
people would be excited.
As you should. Yes, we've been waiting a long time for this, and we're happy that you enjoyed the episode. As always, I want to thank our Lesbian Jesus patrons, Mark Foster,
Jess Klaus,
Tanya Ferguson,
Jacqueline Rose Nishino,
Sarah and Julia,
Danny Gunlock Tamora,
Brittany Ray,
Alana Rosen,
Lizette Stye,
Stacy,
Adi Benitez,
Fiona W.,
Whitney Lennon,
Jennifer Trujillo,
and our King Princess patrons, Amy and Ellen,
Leah Henley,
Liz Chen,
Julia Gonzalez,
and Ashley White. Thank you all so much. We are always blown away by how many names are on there. We love you all so much. We could not make the show without you.
Remember, you can also find us on all the social medias on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at Let's Hang Out Pod.
Or you can email us at letshangoutpod@gmail.com.
You can check out our website at letshangoutpod.com.
Whatever app you use for podcasts, make sure you subscribe so you'll be the first to know when new episodes drop.
And make sure that you are subscribed and caught up on The Flame because all the episodes of that are up and we're going to have a whole new musical dropping before you even know it.
We're also posting videos on our YouTube channel this season, so make sure you subscribe at youtube.com/letshangoutpod to catch them.
If you want to help support the podcast, the easiest and freest way to do that is to leave us a rating and a review on the Apple Podcasts app. It helps new people find the show.
If you want to support us and help us get to that 150 patrons so we can start releasing some fun bonus episodes, you can do that at bit.ly/lespatreon, and you'll also get access to our Patreon-only Q&A on February 23rd.
If you want to help support The Flame and help us get The Flame on stage and make the next musical, you can join our Patreon specifically for our shows at bit.ly/theflame Patreon. We have so much exciting stuff coming up in the next year, and we are just really looking forward to everybody who's helping us make it happen because it's exciting.
If you want to get some Let's Hang Out merch, you can get that at bit.ly/lezshop. I personally have been drinking a lot of tea out of my Flame mug that says here at the Flame, everybody is family. And it's so freaking cute. And it reminds me that I have this beautiful family. So if you want to get a mug, there's all kinds of other stuff on there, but you can get that at bit.ly/lezshop.
If you want to follow us individually, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at LSH Foster.
And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Ellie Brigida. With that, I'm Ellie.
And I'm Lee.
And let's hang out again soon.
Let's hang out.
I send my heart with a seal made of wax. Build up my walls, but you find all the cracks. Let me lead the way, no need to be afraid. Though death himself takes me for a ride. Death himself takes me for a ride. I'll blow the roof off the room that you're living in. I'll leave a mark, split the lark, I'm not giving in. I've got a dream, a stream of words, a bird that perches on the branches of my heart and starts to sing. Pencil and paper, my heart beats a traitor. Fickle and fire, I want her, I take her. I could be the one to know she'll be someone. stream of words, a bird that perches on the branches of my heart and starts to sing. Down we go into hell below us, all the secrets you're scared to show. I can be what you've always wanted. Can't you see you're the only true thing in my life? I'll blow the roof off the room that you're living in. I'll leave a mark, split the lark, I'm not giving in. I've got a stream of words, a bird that perches on the branches of my heart and starts to sing.
Buffet brawlers, glory holes gone wrong, cannibalistic castration cabins, public poopers? These are just a few of the crazy topics you'll hear covered on Excuse Me, That's Illegal, the pettiest podcast around. Whether you need a break from all that murdery true crime stuff, or just enjoy hearing hilarious stories told in a unique way, I got what you need. I'm Leroy Luna, your fearless host/chauffeur. So come hop in my minivan and let's go for a ride. I promise you probably won't be disappointed. Excuse Me, That's Illegal is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, basically everywhere you consume podcasts, with new episodes dropping on the 10th, 20th, and 30th of the month, baby!